I'm trying to figure out a way to rotate this wing easier so we don't have to get down and lay underneath it to do this rib stitching. And right now, the way it's been, every time I wanted to flip the wing over from one side to the other, I had to get somebody to help me do it. And so I'd have to quit doing what I was doing and wait for somebody to come and give me a hand. But doing the rib stitching, if I do it by myself, I've got to run the needle down through one side, go down underneath it, pull it through, and run it back up through to the other side. Doing it on the edges is not going to be too bad, but when you start getting in the middle of this field, it's kind of tough doing that, so it's a lot easier to do it with two people. Or if I was by myself, I could do it easier if I had the wing sitting vertical instead of horizontal. Well, anyway, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done on this wing here from now to do the finish work, where it's going to be needed to be moved around quite a bit. So it'll be a lot better if I had it on a rotisserie. I got to thinking about it. I went up and found, or down I guess, and found the rotisserie that I'd made for the fuselage when I built it. When I brought it up here, was looking at hooking it up here on the butt rib, but it really wouldn't work. It was set up to mount to the engine mount on the airplane. The center of rotation on that was up higher than what this wing is going to be. And I had another rotisserie on the tail end of the airplane, and that one was set up so the center line of it was actually lower. It was at the bottom of the tail instead of the center line, the same as what the engine was. So anyway, it worked out fine for the fuselage, but it's not going to work out here for the wing. Well, I want the wing at a comfortable height. I'm 6 foot tall, so I could have it a little bit taller, but if my wife is helping me, she's only 5 foot tall, so it's got to be a comfortable height for both of us to work at. So anyway, I've looked at this, and I've decided that maybe 3 feet is going to be a good height for the center of rotation on this wing. The wing is about 5 feet wide at the wing tip down there. But anyway, I got to do something to get the rotation on it in the right spot. And so that means I've got to move my center rotation on this down a little bit and figure out a different way to mount it up from what I had before, from what I had for mounting up to the engine mount. I dug out all my scrap pieces of metal and stuff, and I've got enough here that I could have cobbled something together by cutting and welding. And I decided that I didn't really want to weld too much. I really don't want to weld in here in the basement with this wing in here, because any sparks could get over and just burn a hole right through the wing and ruin the fabric job on that in a hurry. And so I have to move everything down to the shop and weld it down there. That means fabricating it here, taking it down there, welding it, bringing it back, so on and so forth. Well, I went down to the hardware store yesterday and I got a couple of angle brackets. So this is one of the angle brackets that I got. Actually, I got a longer one than this. I think this is 3.5 inches, and the ones I got are 3 3/4 inches. And then I had to drill a hole out in one of these mounting holes for this angle bracket. I had to drill it out to fit a 5/16 bolt, because that's what these use, a number AN5 bolt, which is 5/16 to mount up on this hinge point on the wing. Went down to the hangar and found my stash of old bolts, the stuff that I've taken out of the airplane that's got a little bit of rust on them and a little bit of wear on them and stuff that I've taken out of the airplane, but it's too good to throw away. I dug those out. I found a couple of number 5 AN5 bolts, 5/16 bolts, that went through these angle brackets into the attached bracket here on the wing. And I've got quite a few of these pieces of 1-inch square tubing, box tubing, that I bought in a going out of business deal in the hardware store here. And I got a piece of it and cut to length here. Then I drilled this out 5/16 just because I had the 5/16 bits in the drill already. A 1/4-inch bolt will fit through a 5/16 inch hole. And dug out a couple of the old 1/4-inch bolts out of there, AN4 bolts, and got that bolted up there. Now I need to make some kind of a pivot pin here so that I can use it to rotate the wing around. So I'm in the process of trying to figure out that right now. Probably going to have to take this stand here, this rotisserie, I'll figure out the center point of that wing, and I'll have to make some kind of a deal to be able to rotate that around. And I was thinking all kinds of different stuff, but I may just be able to take, I got some AN, now that one's long, not quite long enough, almost long enough. I got some AN6 bolts here. That one is long enough that I could take a couple of these used AN6 bolts and just drill holes out there for an AN6 bolt and use that to rotate around. Yeah, that'll work. That'll be the easiest way to do that instead of making some convoluted thing. I was thinking about a pipe in a pipe and drilling a hole in here and welding a pipe in there for a bushing, and then a smaller pipe, and then weld it onto there, and just a bolt on there will work just fine. All right, we'll work on that. Well, that worked on this end. Got that supported now. That's off the sawhorse on this end. It's still on the sawhorse on the other end. I drilled a hole here 36 inches up from the floor. So that is on there. Got a nut through there. I put enough washers in there to give me space so that the heads of these bolts here on this arm will clear there when I rotate that. But that's about as simple as you can get right there. A lot simpler than what I had in mind. I was thinking, like here, I've got this channel going through here, and I had the shaft going through there with a cap over the top of it bolted down. And then I had a big hub back here with holes in it that I could rotate around and put pins in it and locate it at 45 and different angles and stuff. Anyway, this is a lot simpler. I just have a crossbar here, 2 angle brackets bolted in to the spars, and a bolt through there for it to pivot on instead of, I was overthinking that a lot. Oh, anyway, this end is done. The butt end is done. Now I got to figure out what else I need to do. I got to have a support on the other end of that wing somehow. Well, these are where the wing struts come in and attach into the wing to hold it. Actually, they hold it up on the ground, but their main purpose is to hold the wing down when you're flying. Anyway, they're the strongest attach points on the wing, other than the front where it attaches to the fuselage. So we've got 2 spots here that are strong spots. And what I've seen a lot of guys do is make a bracket that goes in here and ties into these. And then they'll make a big hoop, fits over the whole wing, and there'll be rollers down on the floor. So you can rotate this wing about this point. It'll tie into this point, and you can rotate it about this point. And that looks like a pretty good idea. And I've thought about different ways of doing that. And I guess it's probably the best way. But that is not practical because I don't have the supplies necessary to do that. And then you got a big hoop sticking out here, which takes up all the space in the basement, and I don't really have room for it in here. If you had a big open space in a hangar or something, a big open room, then you could do that. But in here, it's not the most practical thing to do. And I need this not only to work on this wing, to do the finish tapes and the rib stitching and stuff like that, but I'm also going to need it to take it out to paint it. And I'm going to have to take it out to a paint booth to paint it, and I'm going to want to be able to get around it. So anyway, I'm kind of leaning towards something else, and I've seen some guys that make a bracket above Alaska Aviation on 2 or 3 of the Cubs that they built for the Alaska Airmen's Association that they auctioned off. Had this in their videos. They showed that, and I think pretty sure that Cub Crafters did that with this wing when they did it, because there's holes in these brackets right here bolt onto the spars that the wingtip bow screws into or bolts into. The 2 big brackets, the ones on inside of each one of these, have holes all the way through it, and I've seen where guys have put attachments into those holes and use that to support the wing with. And so that's kind of what I'm leaning towards right now. And what I've got is this is the part of the rotator, the fuselage rotator that I built for the fuselage. This went on the tail, and I had a block come out of it. It has a pivot tube right here. This is 37 inches to the center of this. So this is what I'm thinking, is maybe to figure out some way to mount something up across here, the wingtip here, that I can rotate this on. So now I've got to figure out how to do that. And I thought I had some UHMW. I was going to make some blocks that would go in and rest against these two brackets here, and then put a bolt down through them and bolt something up to that. So now I got to think. I'd call it a brainstorm, but it's more like a brain fart. Figure out a way to do this. It's always kind of disconcerting to go poking holes in your brand new fabric, but I took my soldering iron and burned holes here where these brackets are on the attached to the wingtip bow and the spar. Like I said, I'm kind of forming an idea right now of what I'm going to do. I was thinking I could take and put a nylon bushing or something underneath a number 5 bolt and use a long bolt, and anyway put a bushing on the other side of it and put a bar across there. This, that, and the other thing, I was kind of thinking towards that end. We got a piece of plastic. I don't know whether it's UHMW or Delron or exactly what it is. I think it's UHMW. It's a floor sweeping that I picked up down at the shipwrights, and it was originally, what is that, 1.5 inches, something like that. And they use that on the boats, on the commercial fishing boats. I think they make sheets that go on the side of the boat, so that when they pull crab pots and gear up on the side of the boat, that it slides up and doesn't damage the side of the fishing vessel. Well, I've already used that before. I turned down this end semi-round and cut it off and used it for something else once before. I just chucked it up in the lathe here, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it down a semi-round, get it shaped up a little bit, and then I was thinking I would cut a taper plug that would fit down in those brackets with a hole in it for a 3/16 bolt to run through, and make a standoff. Like I said, make it tapered so that it doesn't go up against the fabric, that it goes down in that hole. And so I need 4 of them, 1 for each of 2 for each of the brackets, 1 for each side of the bracket. So this is where I'm starting here. Well, I didn't think I was going to be able to get that down to round, but I did, and it rounded out pretty good. And then I'm going to cut a taper in this so that the bottom taper is a little smaller than 5/16, and bring that out, say, 1 inch. I want 2 of them like that, and they're going to want to be pretty close to exact. They'll be standoffs, and then and then I'll do 2 more for the bottom, and they don't have to be that far because they'll just be bushings for the bolt to go through. So, all right, let's get that done here. There's what I got, and that's what I wanted. That tapered plug goes down into that bracket, and it stands off now, tapered, so that paint, polybrush, and things like that will get around it. And the same thing on the back one. The back one, I had to cut a little bit of a relief out of it to fit around those nuts in there, but that one's going to work. And now I need to do something similar to that on the bottom. But, well, I'm kind of fatigued, suffering from brain fatigue. I spent the last week working on Rotator for that wing, and I got the base of it, the butt rib, set up so it would rotate fine, but I didn't have much luck doing the wing tip out there. I spent 2 or 3 days working on that, making some stuff on the lathe, the plastic plugs to fit in those holes on the wingtip. And it didn't work near as well in reality as it did in my head when I was trying to think of it. Well, I've been scratching my head trying to figure out what to do, and as I said, I don't have a choice of materials here and fabrication facilities to do what some of these guys have done. I went to town yesterday looking, and the telephone company here just put in fiber optic cable out the road, and they've got a bunch of big reels that they had conduit on that they buried in the ground. I reached out to them to see if maybe I could get one of those, but I haven't heard back from them yet. They use pots for fishing for king crab here, and they have pots that are about 6 feet in diameter on the base of them. So I got to thinking maybe if I found a fisherman that had some old pots that were wore out, that I could gab off the rings off the bottom of them. But I had one fisherman, I knew he had square pots instead of round ones, so that didn't work. The idea that I've come up with to see if it works or not, I don't know if it's going to or not, but to try to make a ring out of some PVC pipe. I went to the hardware store looking at the PVC pipe, and ideally I could have used 1.25 inch, but they didn't have any they only had one stick of 1.25 inch PVC pipe. So anyway, I got some 1-inch PVC pipe, and I'm going to try to bend it into a hoop and see what I can make out of it. I went ahead and made a jig similar to the one I made for the wingtip bow. I've got two 10-foot sticks of PVC pipe. That gives it a little over a 38-inch radius on there. So I laid out a 38-inch radius on the table, and I thought about using just my heat gun and heating that up a little bit at a time and bending it. I got to thinking about it, and I've got all this stuff that I set up for steam bending that wingtip bow. I thought I'd just go ahead and set it up. So right now I've got my 4-inch PVC pipe sitting there with everything set up just like I had for steam bending the wingtip bow, and I've got 2 sticks of PVC pipe in there right now. So we'll see if we can't get those heated up enough to make a nice bend. So I just got everything hooked up and got the fire going underneath the pressure pot. We'll let that stuff cook a while and see if we can't get it warmed up enough to make a nice bend. When that whole pipe gets soft, the full length of it, that should be a good indicator that those 2 1-inch pipes inside of it maybe are soft. So we'll keep checking it. They like spaghetti. There's a nice half hoop. All right, well, that went pretty good, I think. As they say, the proof of the pudding's in the eating. We'll see how well that thing works, whether that 1-inch pipe is going to be strong enough to act as a hoop that I want it to or not. But I got my 4-inch pipe back into shape. I let it heat up and screwed that clean-out bung back in there straight because that had gotten distorted. That gets that back round again, and so that pipe is round again, almost. I guess that kind of answers the question whether there's pressure in that pipe or not with what I was doing, because the pipe got hot, and with the pressure cooker going and the steam going in there, there was enough pressure inside that pipe to make it round. As soon as I turned that fire off and the steam quit going in there, the pressure reduced, then that pipe was still hot and it started collapsing down on itself and flattening it out of its own weight. It's cooling off now to where it's going to stay, and I've got it back round again now to where it's usable for a drain pipe if I want to use it for that. Well, let's see what we got here. No spring back on that or anything, that holds its shape. Once I get that other one glued into it, we'll see how it works then. I think I could have made that work, but the hardware store didn't have enough parts and pieces to put that hoop together the way I wanted. They ran out of tees, and it was going to take a week or 2 for them to get enough in to finish that hoop the way I wanted. So I decided I was going to quit on that and get back to work on the wing. I lost about a week working on different things trying to get a rotator for that wing. I wound up just putting a hook in the beam above the wing in the middle of the basement and just suspended one end of the wing from that and used the rotator on the butt end of it. I'll get back to work on the wing here now.